If you're a tech professional and you're focusing on your technical skill sets, this is actually holding you back. Now, if you don't know who I am, my name is Cameron. I'm an ex Apple, ex Amazon engineer by the age of 23 years old. And I'm here to tell you why your technical skill sets are holding you back from landing your ideal tech role and why it's not actually helping you in terms of actually landing it. Now, the reason for this is because, well, everybody's focusing on their technical skill sets, first of all, right? Everybody's focusing on developing their technical skill sets, learning more libraries, frameworks, AI, LLMs, all of this stuff, right? Everybody's learning all of this stuff. Now, overall, if you actually look at the results that they're getting, and when I say results, I mean hard proof results that can substantially benefit them lives in a positive way. So, for example, landing the ideal office that they're looking for, getting pay increases, landing roles in FANG or FinTech, and so forth. Now, if you look at those results, you start realizing that it's actually minimal results in majority of the cases. There's everybody learning technical skill sets, but there's only a fraction of people who are doing that who are actually landing the dream positions that they want to in tech, right? Whether that's engineering, analyst, whether that's seniority in terms of senior titles, directors, and so forth, it's very minimal results compared to that, right? You go on LinkedIn, you see people talking about a new project that they made. Cool. You go to YouTube, you see the exact same thing. Cool. Right. And then you look at the results that they're getting. And in reality, it's not a huge, overwhelming amount of positive results. And the reason for that is because, well, you've been told technical skill sets and developing them is the answer. But I'm here to actually break that cycle and to tell you that that's not actually the case. You're not missing more technical skill set, technical development. If you're already in tech, and chances are, if you're watching this video, you are, and you've probably already got some level of experience as well, then it's not going to be needed to be able to develop that further. Of course, it's good for your overall development and your technical learning, 100%. But if the main goal at the moment is to land our ideal tech roles, then it's simply not going to be the bottleneck. The only time your technical skill sets are ever the bottleneck is when you make it to interviews and you're getting a substantial amount of interviews. You're getting to technical stages, you're being asked technical questions, and you're blue screening. You don't know the answers even 1%. That is the only time technical skill set development is required. Okay. And even then, it's like 3 months of learning and just practicing with interviews, collecting all of the questions that you've been asked, and then just learning them and learning the topics and that kind of stuff. So even after 3 months of that, you're back in the same position as to not focusing on them. Now, the reason why it's not the answer is because it's continuously iterative. It goes over and over and over and over again. And you are learning a lot in this time. But if you're not getting the results, you really have to sit back and ask yourself, well, is this even worth it? Because learning in and of itself is not the result. That's a process you take to get to the end result and the end solution. So, for example, the end solution in majority of cases will be landing the ideal dream role that you could possibly want in tech as a tech professional. The process leading up to that is learning. Now, it's going to be learning through various different parts. Some of it is going to be technical learning based on the caveat that I mentioned just now. A lot of it is going to be on marketing and actually standing out to these companies so they know exactly what we can provide to them as value. Now, learning itself is going to be the process. The end result is truly what matters. So if we get stuck in this process, right, this bottleneck where we're basically just not moving forward and we're just stuck learning more libraries, more frameworks, more technologies, more AI, all of this stuff, and we're not directly getting the results from it as well within the space of like a 3 month period, then we do have to sit back and have self reflection to think, is this actually going to get us the results that we actually do want to have? Because if it isn't, then of course, what we need to do is we need to change the strategies that we're deploying and what we're focusing on to be able to land the positions that we want. Now, if your sole aim and goal is to just learn more, then that's probably the answer. But if your sole aim and goal is to actually get ahead, get the career progression that you've always wanted, get the pay that you've always wanted, the reputation, the bigger companies, whether that's FANG, FinTech, working at AI companies, or just any big companies that you want to in general, and that's the ideal one that you want to have as a result, then we need to focus not on technical skill sets, we need to focus on something completely different, which I'll get into in just a moment. And the reason for this is because, well, you can just stay stuck. As I mentioned, it's iterative. You can stay stuck for years and years learning technical stuff, but with no results there. And this is something I see all of the time. I see this all of the time. I see this from people who reach out to me on social media, from people who I hop on one-to-one calls with, from people on LinkedIn who are connecting with me, and people that I work one-to-one directly with in terms of my general corporate role as an engineer as well. And I'll give you a perfect example of this, right? I've worked at Apple and Amazon. I've said this before. You probably know this already as well. I've worked with people who have decided to pivot and change jobs, change roles, and they've went back on the market, whether that's, for whatever reason. It could be layoffs. It could just be that they took a leap of faith and it didn't work out. So now they're wanting to come back to a role, but obviously they left there, so they need to find a new one. Whatever it may be, what I commonly see time and time again is, although they've worked at these big companies and they've got really good technical skill set development, they come back onto the market and they struggle to land positions that they want, despite going to these big companies. FANG, right? The top of the crop, cream of the crop, whatever you want to call it. Those are the best companies, and people are still failing to land interviews and offers even after that because they're focusing on their technical skill sets. They're grinding out leak code. They're watching 14-hour YouTube, coding courses online on YouTube. They're doing all of this kind of stuff. They're thinking of getting certifications. They're just doing some projects on the side. They're tinkering around with new libraries. They're really just doing just a bunch of dilly-dally, essentially. And they're actually, suffering from that as well because they're not getting the results, and it's actually the opposite. They're getting rejections and ghostings despite actually working at these big companies. And the reason for that is because they're focusing on all of the wrong things, technical skill set development, right? Because if they're already in these big companies, they already have a good technical skill set. And if they're going to apply and they're learning technical skill set development even further and they're not getting offers, begs the question, is that really the issue here? Now, you only want to develop your technical skill set to the point that you are very competent in it and you understand it well. But you don't go over this cliff where it's kind of like a cost benefit analysis. Essentially, we have learning, it ramps up. There's going to be a point where it curves off. That curve off is going to be the point where we do a cost benefit analysis. Is this cost of me learning all of this stuff and spending this time and energy to learn all of this actually going to be benefiting me with results afterwards? Now, in the majority of these cases, the answer is no, right? Because technical skill sets, you learn it once, you know it forever, right? And you learn on the job as well. So it's completely pointless in terms of sticking with that for any more than 3 months, unless that's the issue in terms of what I mentioned as the caveat at the start. But yeah, I did want to focus on marketing, right? And this is the thing that goes back into and ties back into the people that I've worked with directly, right? From Apple, from Amazon, from, anywhere. They're coming back on the market and they're not getting interviews, they're not getting offers, despite having that level of experience as well. Same as me. Now, the reason for that is because, well, they're focused on technical skill sets, not marketing. Marketing is going to be how to stand out to the companies to be hired for your ideal dream roles. So then the companies can actually see your applications, they can assess you in an interview, and they can say, you know what, this person is the best fit for this company, and I want them in my team. They do not say that based on technical skill sets alone. That's why we have behaviorals, that's why we have screening, that's why we have ATS, recruiters, and so forth. Because it doesn't always come down to your technical skill set being the issue. And if you think that's the case, that's most likely why you're stuck collecting rejections and ghostings right now. Because we're not acknowledging the fact that there's more that goes into it than just learning technical stuff. You learn technical stuff to understand what it's like to be in tech. You get hired for a few of your roles. Now you're a tech professional. Cool. If you keep on technical learning and thinking that's going to solve the issue of getting into FANG or whatnot, you're simply mistaken. Now, I'll give you an example, right? As I mentioned, learning is a process. We have the results at the end. Now, let's say there's a person and they go to the gym for 1 year and they're in fantastic shape. They've got a six pack. They've got, big biceps. They've got perfect workouts, all of this kind of stuff, right? And they did that in 1 year. And you're going to the gym to get a PT, right? And you have a choice between that person or this second person. Now, the second person is not in shape. They don't have a six pack. It doesn't really look like they work out either, but they have been going to the gym consistently for 4 years and they've been perfecting the right strategies, the right degrees to turn when you're lifting up weights for your biceps and all of this, right? For your backs, for your shoulders. They've been perfecting it for 4 years, but they don't have the results to show it. Which one would you typically go for as a PT? Would you go for the person who's spent 1 year doing it and is in the peak physical shape, or someone who's spent 4 years perfecting it but aren't in shape? Well, you would go for the person who spent 1 year doing it but has all of the results. Because in reality, the results is actually what truly matters, not the process. And if you can actually do that, and let's say it's 1 year, right? It also means that you can learn that in 1 year as well. Okay. And there's actually going to be results tied to correctly to it as well. Because if we focus on, let's say, that 4 years, right, of what the other PT did, that's essentially the 4 years of technical learning that we could be doing. But we could have no results by the end of it. And that's the cost benefit analysis. So we need to actually make sure that the learning that we're doing for technical skill set development is enough to be able to pass technical interview questions, to be competent in our skill set for actually performing the role if we were to be hired. But then also about 80-90% of it is going to be the marketing. That's going to actually give you the results that you're looking for as a tech professional in the field to land your ideal roles that you're actually wanting. Because technical skill set development, you can learn forever. You can learn for those whole 4 years. It doesn't mean you're going to land any better role at the end than if you just focused on marketing. And I am a clear testimonial to that. Okay. Now, I'll give you an example, right? So, most people who break into FANG, so Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, most people who break into these companies, they spend 20 years, so 2 decades worth in the industry just to have an okay shot at getting into one of these companies. Yeah, I've done two at the ages of 23 at the start of my career. Now, that is a direct testimonial of me being the PT that went to the gym for 1 year and has the results, opposed to the 4 years and no results or limited results. And that is the whole purpose behind marketing, because that's exactly what I did. I focused on technical skill sets enough to be very confident in them and competent in them as well. And then I focused on marketing to actually be able to be hired and get those results. Because I could do 10, 20, 30 years in the industry and then break into FANG. But the cost benefit analysis, it would be there, but it wouldn't be in my favor. Because I've costed myself 30 years of my life just to get a somewhat okay, decent role by the end of it. That is not simply worth it, in my opinion. You might as well get the results as soon as possible and then start reaping the rewards from it to then reinvest into yourself to do technical skill set development if you want to when you're in your ideal roles, right? If you have nothing else that you want to do. So that's why it's so important to understand that your technical skill set development that you're currently focusing on is actually your limitation and is not going to necessarily guarantee you any better offers once you're finished with it. And I say finished in quotations because, as I mentioned, it's never ending. You can do it forever. It doesn't mean you're going to land a role. You could do it for 50 years. And then when you're, let's say, 70 years old, you could land a mid-level role, maybe a senior role. It doesn't mean you're going to be on, millions or anything to even compensate even 1% to the amount of time it took you to build up that technical skill set. Results matter in life more than the actual process itself. And it's very important we don't get caught up in the process and we go through the process as fast as possible to get the results as soon as possible as well. Because every single day that we're not in the ideal roles in tech that we're wanting, we're costing ourselves that lifestyle that we could have. We're costing ourselves that work fulfillment, that work-life balance, that purpose, that respect in the industry. We're costing ourselves that for every single day that we're not there. And that's why it's so important to get through the process as fast as possible and then start getting the results. And if you wish to develop your technical skill set further once you've landed your ideal role, then by all means, if you want to do that, then you can do. But the results here is the main important part. So if you're looking to land your ideal role as a tech professional and you're focusing on technical skill sets and you're getting rejections, ghostings, recruiters not reaching back out to you, and you're not too sure where you're going wrong, chances are this is it. And if you want to know directly how me and my students are currently using marketing to land our ideal positions and the exact strategies that we use, I'll pop a link in the top of the description where you can book in a one-to-one complimentary call with me, where we'll be able to go over your current situation, the bottlenecks that you're currently facing, and how I can help you, or if I can help as well. So it's very important to understand technical skill sets can be a limitation when it tips over that edge, and we ideally want to focus on marketing instead. Now that is going to be everything for this video, so I'll see you in the next one.